Good evening. Welcome to the August 20th meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Board. Am I way too loud? Oh, okay. Sounds pretty loud to me. What? So I'd ask for us to stand for the pledge and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business is 75 Point Lookout, Zone R12.5. Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez. Roll call from the left, please.
Brian Collegian.
Nancy Austin.
John Grant.
Carl S. Moore.
Scott Marlowe.
Jim Cater.
Peggy Kearney.
Bob Sadie.
And I'm Jim Quish. We have with us Meg Green and David Sulkus representing the city. First order of business, 75 Point Lookout, Zone R12.5. Petition of Ron Wasserman, P.E. for a coastal area site plan review for a proposed single-family dwelling on map 26, block 538, parcel 7, of which Michael Monteleone is the owner.
Mr. Chair, can you just make the announcement?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we do have item 3, 119 High Street has been withdrawn. So if anyone is here for that, you'll have to come back.
Evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, licensed land surveyor, 158 Research Drive. I'm here representing Michael Monteleone. He's the owner of the property at 75 Point Lookout. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Point Lookout neighborhood. There was a house on it. It was damaged by the storm, and so it now sits as a vacant lot. And he's proposing a single-family house, and so we're here presenting a coastal area site plan application. It's a relatively straightforward application. It's been reviewed by the various departments. I have an existing condition survey. Again, it's a vacant lot. It's relatively gently sloping up until to the rear of the property, which abuts Long Island Sound. And then there's quite an extensive drop down to the mean high water line. The property does have a portion of it. It's in a flood zone. The house will not be built within the flood zone. The elevations of this property average around 26, and the flood zone is at 19, so all of the house is quite a bit above the flood zone. So this is a point lookout based on to the north, 2 residential properties to the northwest and to the northeast, and Long Island Sound to the southwest. Proposing a house, a driveway, single-family house, a patio, and a pool in the backyard. The house is 94.5 feet from the mean high water line, which triggers the CAM application. The pool is 75 feet from the mean high water line. There's a bulk zoning table. We meet all the requirements for setbacks. Grading and drainage plan, which has been reviewed by the city engineer. We're providing some on-site storm drainage for roofs in accordance with the 2004 water quality, DEP water quality requirements. I also have a grade plane detail for the building height. The building height is 26.8 feet tall from the average grade. Erosion control plan, Again, relatively straightforward, anti-tracking pad, silt fence. Some of the details for the civil and site structures. We are proposing a sidewalk and a concrete apron. There are none on the street as far as sidewalks or concrete aprons, but this is the requirement now of Milford Public Works, so we will be doing that. Again, single-family house, two-car garage, open floor plan on the first floor, master bedroom on the first floor, 3 additional bedrooms on the second floor, large patio on top of the first floor, and some elevation views. It's a contemporary style house. Chris McManus is the general contractor. He's here with me. I can answer any additional questions, or if you have any questions on the house construction.
David, would you care to comment?
The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story flat-roofed, single-family house with garage. It'll be approximately 25 feet in height. A pool is also proposed in the rear. There appears to be no adverse impacts to coastal resources.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Wasmer. In the city engineer's report, at number 1, they referred to what they describe as rip-rap. Could you just address if that's in compliance? There's some question about that on his review.
I don't recall any negative comments from the city engineer. There is riprap that exists on the property. It was a revetment that was built prior to me being involved with this, and it was to stabilize the slope. They got their permits from the DEP. The slope was eroding as a result of the Irene and Sandy storms. I can look at the report. Let me go grab it if there's a more specific question you have.
Yeah, just on number 1, he said that the purpose of the review was assumed that all applicable permits were received and the work was performed in full compliance. So I make sure that that is as far as you understand.
As far as I understand, yes, that was built prior to me being involved here, and I believe they got all the permits from the DEP. Langen Engineering from New Haven was doing that for them 4 or 5 years ago.
Thank you.
So, David, as a follow-up to that, we did approve work on that property. Was there any city review or state review to say that it was built according to the plans we approved?
If the state permitted it, then the state would have reviewed it to make sure it was in compliance with their permits.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, I'd hear a motion. For Mr. Collegian.
It is a little loud. I move to approve as presented the petition of Ronald Wasmer for a coastal area site plan review to construct a single-family dwelling on map 26, block 538, parcel 7, of which Michael Monteleone is the owner.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Marlowe. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'd hear a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
How are you doing?
Next order of business is 204 Melba Street, Zone BD, petition of John Nuff, Esquire, for coastal area site plan review to construct additional parking area and storm drainage on map 38, block 542, parcel 1, of which Fire Engine Pizza Company LLC is the owner.
Evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 Broad Street here in Milford, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Fire Engine Pizza Company LLC. Fire Engine has two principals, Marty McCarthy and Phil Signeri. Marty is here with me this evening. Phil is attending to the business. Both Marty and Phil have over 20 years of experience in the restaurant business and are incredibly hardworking and dedicated business people. Fire Engine is the owner of the property at 204 Melville Street at the corner of Platt Street. The existing building on the property is a former firehouse owned by the city, which dates back to 1948. Fire Engine purchased the property from the city in 2015, and there's some documents behind tab 3 in the handout that I just gave you related to that purchase. Fire Engine proposes to adaptively reuse the existing building as a neighborhood destination restaurant. No expansion of the existing restaurant is proposed. On your agenda is listed as additional parking and storm drainage. We are indeed doing those two things, but actually the site plan application, the CAM application, is for a restaurant use for this building. The subject property is only one of 4 small parcels located in the BD zone in the city, and the parcel itself consists of 24,450 square feet. Restaurants are a permitted use in the BD district. The existing building consists of approximately 5,400 square feet with a footprint of only 2,800 square feet. There is no ability to convert the existing building into a viable use that preserves it for use by the public other than as a restaurant. Since acquiring the property, and at their own risk, Marty and Phil have invested in substantial exterior and interior improvements to the building. If you look behind tab 4, you'll see what the property formerly looked like. Tab 5 is what it currently looks like, and tab 6 is what's proposed. Fire Engine currently operates a wonderful restaurant in the Black Rock section of Bridgeport. Besides serving incredible food, Marty and Phil truly believe in giving back to the community in a variety of ways, including Mondays Matter, where they partner with the local charity to give 10% of the day's sales to the charity. In addition, they help to revitalize the Black Rock section of Bridgeport, and it's their hope that they can do the same in the small commercial pocket of Point Beach. From a broader context, Fire Engine will be another really exciting addition to the city. Downtown Milford is already wonderfully vibrant, but we're seeing new, fun concepts outside of downtown lately, and we believe that this will be another one of those. If you look at a map, the property is an island in a sea of very dense residential developments, including a number of large multifamily communities, including Ocean Point Condos, Southwind Village, Serenor Apartments, Bay Point Village, and Breaker Beach. So not only will this area benefit from an attractive, fun, community-oriented dining experience, where currently there is none, but we anticipate that many of our patrons will arrive on foot. And as a result, back in January, the ZBA approved our application for a parking variance. 2 other quick notes before I'm going to ask Ron Wasmer to describe our site plan. We all know that those of us who love pizza typically favor one of the big 3 in New Haven, whether it's Pepe's or Sally's or Modern. There's no question that Fire Engine deserves a spot alongside those 3, but with a far more varied menu, and I've included a copy of their Bridgeport menu behind tab 7, and they anticipate having something very similar here in Milford. And last, as you probably know, applicants often prefer when there's no public hearing because, frankly, no one can come and speak against the application. In this case, however, it's actually a little bit disappointing because at the January hearing, there's such a wonderful outpouring of support and compliments, not only for the food, but also for Phil and Marty personally, and also their commitment to the community. And I really wish you had had the opportunity to hear from all those folks. You really couldn't ask for 2 better people to join your community. And I really hesitate to use the word heartwarming in the context of a zoning application, but if you're here that night and if you hear the testimony from all the people in whose lives they touch, particularly through their charitable work, it really was indeed heartwarming. So in any event, I'm going to have Ron describe the site plan to you. We comply with all respects, with the exception of the variances we received back in January, and obviously if you have any questions, we'll answer those at the end.
Good evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, licensed land surveyor, 158 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut. here representing Fire Engine Pizza LLC. John gave an excellent description of the proposal as well as some of the history and character references. I'm sure you're all familiar with the site. Everybody's familiar with the Point Beach Fire Department. The proposal, the site will remain substantially the same. The building footprint will remain the same. We are expanding the parking lot that existed, but by a de minimis amount. We're removing some driveways where the fire trucks used to exit the building and installing some new sidewalks there. We've proposed some storm drainage in accordance with your city standards as well as the Connecticut DEP 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual. This, again, was reviewed by Greg Pedlewski. We have an extensive zoning table on the side. There's quite a bit of regulations per this zone. We did receive some variances, and the rest of the application conforms to the requirements of the regulations. Right now, there's not much in the line of landscaping, so as part of this zoning application and your requirements, we're proposing a fair amount of landscaping on the property, some large deciduous shade trees. Grading is minimal. There is a parking lot. We're expanding it ever so slightly, just so the parking spaces are the standard size. And again, we're adding some infiltration for surface parking drainage. The building has all the required utilities. It's been approved by the Sewer Commission, so it's a public water, public sewer. Erosion control, again, is part of your site plan applications requirements. Illumination, there'll be some wall-mounted lights on the building, as well as one pole light to light the parking lot to the rear of the property. Existing condition survey. Various details of civil and site structures. These are the architectural plans. So the first floor, obviously the entrance and reception areas, restrooms, a large rectangular bar sits, I'm not going to count them, but I'm going to say about 30 people, probably 40 people, as well as some high-top tables and some booths. Second floor will be primarily table areas that could be rearranged for various functions, as well as bathrooms and kitchen facilities. There's a very small storage area in the basement that's going to be for a cooler and storage of incidentals of restaurants. The building exterior, so the building is primarily staying the way it is. I'm sure John's pictures do more justice than the plans do. Replace some windows, do some painting, replace the doors, but substantially look the same as it is right now. Taking out the pole, though.
Thank you. David, would you care to comment?
Actually, I have a couple of questions. I'm not sure if it'll be for Mr. Wasmer or Mr. Nuff, but on the handout this evening from Mr. Nuff, Section 6, it's showing some architectural renderings of the building and site. And among them, it looks like you have repaved the driveway going to the former fire engine doors, which is contrary to your letter to me from May 31st, where the existing driveway to the former fire truck entrances is proposed to be removed. So
The purpose of the rendering is just to focus on the building, not on the pavement in front of it.
Okay.
These images date back to January, when we did our ZBA hearing. So the sole purpose of this is to indicate what the building's going to look like, not the site itself.
Okay. And speaking of the building, you're showing what appears to be landscaping on the flat roof, which is on just the part of the building that has one story.
Yep.
Next to two. Is that just for decorative purposes, or are you going to have an outdoor patio?
No, Marty confirms that it's purely for decorative purposes, no outdoor seating, thus no additional parking required.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from, David?
Oh, I was just going to say, I can give you my little summation of,
Very good.
now that we have those questions.
No, go ahead.
The applicant is proposing to convert a former firehouse into a restaurant with bar. The building is approximately 5,600 square feet with 26 on-site parking spaces. A parking variance was granted on 1/8/2019. The first and second floors proposed as a restaurant. Drainage for the parking area is being added where none currently exists. And in terms of the CAM portion of this, there are no adverse impacts to coastal resources. The approval should be conditioned on addressing the city engineer's comments and on receiving a favorable police report.
And Mr. Chairman, while I know that this is not a public hearing, I know that your city's economic development director would like to say a few words. I think it's probably appropriate that she do so, despite this not being a public hearing. And I think it's important in light of the fact that when the city sold this property to my clients, it was always with the intention that this would be a restaurant. So if you could accommodate Julie Nash speaking for a moment.
Julie's welcome to speak.
Thank you, Chairman Question, members of the board. I came here in January to speak in support of Fire Engine, and I come back again today to do so as well. As Attorney Nuff mentioned, we did sell this property with the intention for Marty to turn into a restaurant, and we are so excited that we're at this point right now. As you know, we have over 3,000 businesses in Milford who have committed to invest in our local economy, and that figure continues to grow. We are a city supportive of job creation, economic sustainable growth, business development, innovation in Milford. In furthering our mission to assist local business development, I speak in support of Agenda Item D2. This is a family-oriented neighborhood by the beach with some tourism in the area. Fire Engine Pizza Company will provide a fantastic option for visitors and residents to have a quiet evening out at a family-friendly restaurant. In addition, commercial viability of the neighboring complex will increase. My office encourages small business growth, and we believe this request will allow for the enhancement of Milford, further attract tourism and additional business development. We appreciate your advocacy on behalf of business in Milford and urge you to approve this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Moore.
I know this is not the property in question, but I growing up in the area just around the corner, Carriage Path North. I noticed that the clubhouse hasn't been discussed. I know it's been deteriorated at this point, and I'm concerned if there's any health concerns in regards to building this property at this time.
We're certainly aware, but I mean, just to be clear, I mean, we don't own that parcel. I mean, it's an abutting parcel. I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future, but I mean, obviously, clearly, my clients have no concern, with, frankly, investing fairly substantial amounts of money into the property, despite the location. I'm not really quite sure what's going to happen to that building because I don't know what the legal status of the entity that owns the property, but, we have no concerns with regard to it.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Thank you. Seeing none, I would hear a motion. Peg.
I move to approve as presented the petition of John Nupp for a site plan review and coastal site plan review to establish a restaurant with bar on map 38, block 542, parcel 1, of which Fire Engine Pizza Company, LLC is the owner.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Austin. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just, are we including the conditions on that, is that,
Yes, Peg, would you include the conditions as stated by David?
Including conditions as stated.
Your second's good with that? Okay, so we're,
Can you read into the record the conditions?
The conditions are approval is contingent upon a favorable review by the Police Commission.
There's an A and a B.
Oh, sorry. The plan shall be updated to the satisfaction of the city engineer as well.
we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Mr. Cater? No? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Thank you. Good job, John.
Next order of business is a public hearing. 30 Surf Avenue, Zone R5, petition of Warren Field for a special permit with coastal area site plan review for proposed single-family dwelling on map 027, block 446, parcel 3, of which Molly Rentals LLC is the owner.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Lynch, Trembicki, and Boynton, and my office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, both of the applications before you, this one and the following one, involve identical houses to be built on adjacent lots. So if the board's agreeable, I'm going to make one presentation, and then, of course, afterwards, there would be two separate motions for either approval or denial.
David, do you have any problem with that?
No, that's fine.
Thank you. That's
Thank
fine. That's fine. Thank
Great,
you.
thanks. So I'm here tonight representing Molly Rentals LLC and the two principals of the company, Buddy and Chris Field, who are seated with me tonight. The board is well familiar with both of my clients. They've had extensive involvement with building residential and multifamily developments in Milford over the last 15, 20 years. And the property at 30 and 34 Surf Avenue was purchased by them last year, and this, in fact, is the third step of the zoning review of this development. The lots were certified by Stephen Harris under Section 642 of our zoning regulations as legal non-conforming lots. There was a prior residence that was located on the two lots. It did not have a structure or any additional accessory structures that would cause a merger of the two lots. So the two lots were certified by Steve Harris when my clients purchased it as two legal non-conforming lots consisting of some 46,000 square feet in the R5 zone. The second stage of the approval was going to the Zoning Board of Appeals in May, where we successfully received variances, first for lot 30 Surf Avenue, which the board granted variances for a side yard variance and a rear yard setback variance to locate the structure further back from Surf Avenue, as well as to allow a slightly larger structure that would be zoning compliant, and as well the rear yard variance for the deck, for the projection into the setback. Similarly, for 34 Surf Avenue, the board granted one variance for the rear yard setback, again for the deck to project into the rear portion of the property. So we're now before you with the third and final stage to develop two houses on this property, and we've submitted the CAM application that was prepared by Paul Stovall. With our application, we had the site plan showing the existing site conditions. There are two single-family residences that are envisioned here on each lot, each house consisting of 1,800 square feet. The property is located, as I said, in the R5 zone. It's also located in the flood zone AE. So the plans have been designed so that the first floor of living space is going to be 15 feet above the required sea level. The houses are constructed so that the maximum height to the center point of each house is going to be 32 feet above the average grade. So both of those items are noteworthy to show that the house does conform with both the FEMA regulations and as well the zoning regulations as they prescribe for the height. The first floor of each house will actually be the garage area with flood vents. The flood vents, there's some 5 of them, and this plan was reviewed by Steve Harris as the CAM officer. I believe you've been given a copy of his report where he has signed off on this. The other 2 levels of the house will consist of living space. As I said, some 1,800 square feet. There's roughly 945 square feet on each floor. The first floor will have a living area and a kitchen with bathroom. There'll be a deck out to the rear. The second floor will have 3 bedrooms located there with bathroom on the third floor. The utilities are going to be in the attic of the house. I'm told that the condenser for the air conditioner will be on the deck, the first floor deck of the property, so that everything is going to be compliant with the FEMA regulations in terms of their location. The actual application was submitted by Paul Stoll, and it speaks for itself. There's one noteworthy portion in there where, because of the development, the increase in the impervious surface of each lot is going to increase to 51%, and 65%, of course, is required or is permitted, so that that portion of the report is certainly compliant. But other than that, both Buddy and Chris are here with me, able to answer any questions you may have, but it's a pretty straightforward application to you to build on both of these lots. It's located, the property, if you're familiar with it, is located at the end of Surf Avenue before the intersection with Broadway. So the actual CAM requirement, and actually we're before you with a special permit application because we're within 25 feet of the tidal marshland to the rear. So any questions you may have, we'll be happy to answer them or try to.
David, would you care to comment?
My comments apply to both 30 and 34. The applicant is proposing to construct a new single-family dwelling of 32 feet in height. Construction is within 25 feet of the mean high water line, which makes this a special permit application. There appear to be no adverse impacts on coastal resources.
Any questions or comments from the board at this time? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Attorney Lynch. Good evening.
Good evening.
Page 2 of the city engineer's report, and I will address my questions assuming that the reports appear to be exactly the same for both properties. There's several concerns that he had. Have they been addressed, such as the coastal management plan? We go through approximately 8 or 9 items that he has concerns for.
I asked Buddy about that beforehand, and I think that the response was that any of those concerns, they're relatively minor in nature, and they can be made conditions of approval.
And in the second part of that is, and based on the concerns he had above, he gave various recommendations. Would the applicant be amenable to those conditions being imposed?
Yes.
Nothing that you can see would be a problem?
No.
I have no further questions. Thank you very much, Attorney Lynch.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. I would invite anyone to speak on either property to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and be heard. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Are there any further questions or comments? Then I would hear a motion. Mr. Sadi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion to Approve the applications jointly for 30-34 Surf Avenue, a petition of Warren Field for a special permit with coastal area site plan review for proposed single-family dwelling, first on map 027, block 446, parcel 3, which Molly Rentals LLC is the owner, and additionally, the same map block for 34 Surf Avenue, with the following conditions. Recommendations of the city engineer contained on page 2 of his report. Field adjustment may be necessary to ensure the garage slab elevation is constructed at an elevation of a minimum of 1.5 feet above the elevation of the center of the road. Recommended that existing sidewalks be removed and replaced. Remove and repair the existing bituminous curbs and replace with concrete. Building plans need to be reviewed to determine, verify that elevations are compliant. Plans should be revised to include a coastal resources on or near site. Plans should be revised to add CJL. And lastly, roof leaders are to be directed to propose rain barrels. Plans should be revised to add those appropriate notes.
We have a motion. Which address, Mr. Sadi? I think we have to do each separately.
Yeah, I was going to just ask two things. We should do separate motions for each property, and it may be more expedient just to say the plan shall be updated to the satisfaction of the city engineer, and you can reference the date of that memo.
So, Mr. Sadi, I don't think you have to read the whole thing again if you just pick one of the addresses.
My motion is for 30 Surf Avenue, and I stand by my application under the motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Collegian. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Now we'll address 34 Surf Ave. Do we have a motion? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you very much. In reference to 34 Surf Ave, I move to approve the petition of Warren Field for a special permit with coastal area site plan review for proposed single-family dwelling on map 027, block 446, parcel 3, of which Molly Rentals LLC is the owner. And the conditions would be as recommended by the city engineer on page 2 through 3 of his report dated July 29, 2019.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Austin. Are there any further comments or questions or discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Liaison reports. We did circulate a list of liaison positions. I don't have that in front of me, though. Does anybody have that with us? David, do you have that with you?
No, I don't believe I have that.
Would you please have, for the next meeting, would you distribute it with the package so that we can ask for volunteers at that point?
Sure.
And we can go through them one at a time. Thank you. So we have no liaison reports, subcommittee reports. Do you have something?
No report, except, David, we are going to have a regulation subcommittee our next meeting before the meeting.
Great. And the Plan of Conservation and Development, we will meet the meeting following that. And we will have an agenda sent out before that. We have approval of the minutes. We have a motion? So moved. Without objection. Chair's report.
Mr. Point of order, Mr. Chairman, would you note my abstention from the minutes for 8-6 that I was not at, please?
Would you say that again?
I am abstaining from a vote on that. I was not present at the meeting.
So noted. Chair's report, I have none. Staff report.
None this evening.
think that's ready for adjournment. All those in favor? Adjourned. Thank you.